Hey, folks, thanks for tuning in for another Buckmaster's Big Buck Blueprint. Appreciate y'all tuning in. We got another big buck down, and we got our buddy Kevin Sumners from Kentucky with us today. Kevin, welcome to our podcast.
How you doing?
Man, look at all the deer hanging up behind you. I'd say you kind of know what's going on.
Yeah, it might be a little luck too.
Well, hey, take luck over expertise any time of the day. So, well, let's talk about this. Who got you started hunting?
I started deer hunting when I was probably I'm gonna say 8 years old. With my going with my uncle. We'd go deer hunting pretty much just about every day. As soon as season comes in, we'd be out there hunting them. And he's pretty much the one that got me into it. And man, it's just as a kid, I just desired. I loved it, and it's just something I just desire to do.
I got you. All right, now weapon-wise, which weapons do you like to hunt with?
I am a bow man, strictly.
Okay. All right. But you
I
will.
took a bow of many days during rifle season.
Really? Okay. So you like that close encounter part then?
Yeah, I like the close encounter.
But you will pull a trigger if you have to.
Yeah, last year I had to pull a trigger on one with a gun, but hey, that deer remained just as much as I killed it with a bow because I had so much time in the woods after him.
That's cool. All right. If somebody's watching today's podcast, and by the way, the podcast is brought to you by Rocky Boots. They're one of our favorite sponsors. So if somebody's watching this, tell me some of the things with some of the big deer hanging behind you that you've been successful with that they might be able to pick up a tip. Well, I mean, what goes in your planning and strategy each year when you're starting to deer hunt?
Man, I try to research the oldest deer, where like the location is at, and I'm like, hey, this deer, I think this deer is a certain year. I think he's like 6 years old, or I think he's 5. I don't think he's gonna grow. I try to harvest that one. Or I think some things where people make the biggest mistake in the world early season is they'll have a deer on camera and they're like, well, I can't go in there and hunt him. I got the wrong wind. Man, I have learned so much of deer hunting the last 10, 15, 20 years that I've been deer hunting. 90% of the time, where you think a deer is at, he's not there. He's most of the time coming out from a different area, circling you, and you think he's coming from a different spot, and he's actually not. I have watched many deer come out of a block of woods that I would have never guessed he was in that woods, and he come from somewhere I didn't even think he was at.
How about that? Now, do you use a lot of trail cameras?
Well, the last 3 years, I've started pushing a lot of trail cameras. Used to, I just kind of hunted to have fun. I mean, put salt out, mineral and stuff. But the last 3 years, I've really got into the cameras.
All right, now food sources up there. How many acres you hunt?
I've got one farm that's 126 acres that I hunt. That's pretty much. That's been my nail farm for the last 3 years that I've really stuck to.
Okay. What kind of food sources on?
It's got corn and it rotated. I think last year was corn. This year was beans, and last year was corn.
That's amazing up there. I mean, because the body size of the whitetails up there, they're 250 plus in complete body weight.
The body size, they're humongous. Like I've seen some does harvested before that you would have swore up and down that they should have had horns on their head.
All right, so when you start, I mean, when does the season come in up there in Kentucky?
Usually the first weekend of September, around the 6th or 7th.
Okay, so that's when y'all are getting after them, and they're pretty much in velvet then. When do they come horn?
Well, sometimes early season, the 1st of September, some of them start shedding velvet. Just depends on what location you're at. But I've had them the first weekend of bow season be out of velvet, and then I've had them be in velvet for 2 or 3 weeks.
Wow, didn't know that. Okay, all right. Now bow season starts the 1st of September. When are you spotting your deer? You feeding them in the spring and summer. When do you start really picking out what your inventory is?
I usually keep a camera year round running, and I usually put mineral. I use Lucky Buck, and I've been putting it out for I don't know 10, 15 years. I've been using Lucky Buck, and I usually go out there on every month or so, or 2 or 3 weeks, putting out some buckets of Lucky Buck year round, and I just keep cameras running, and it kind of helps me for turkey season a little bit, having them out there, and then just kind of start paying more attention when they start growing their horns and stuff, and just usually just using the cameras for turkeys, but since they're out there, I'm usually putting a lucky buck out in my salt licks and stuff and keeping the deer coming in and stuff.
Where on position in your mineral blocks, where do you put them?
I usually put them at the edge of a field. The reason I put them at the edge of the field is because 90% of your deer is gonna come out in the field, and you can get a picture. Usually, I can get a picture of every deer if I got it at the edge of the field. Not saying that I'm gonna kill him at the edge of the field, but I can get an inventory of what's there more if I got it at the edge of the field.
I got you. So by the end of August, you ought to have a pretty good idea what you got for the season, don't you?
Yeah, usually by the end of the August, I usually do have a pretty good choice. Like last year, it was kind of confusing on me. It wasn't confusing, but it was. I had like 7 or 8 deer over 160. And usually that's a deer that you go after is a 160
Sure.
around here.
Sure.
But I had this deer behind me that I was after. I'm like, man, I think this deer is going to be like 190. I'm like, I really think this is the deer that I need to go after. I thought about it. I said, yeah, this is the one I'm going after. And
now,
he just.
So how many deer can you take? Just one in Kentucky? Is that it?
You can take one in Kentucky.
That's it.
Wow.
Wow.
That's it. One buck.
So your season goes from the 1st of September till how long?
The January. I'm thinking January the 19th.
Gotcha. So you got a long time to hunt then.
You got a long time to pick your choice of what you want to hunt. Last year, I tagged out the first day, so it was pretty much.
That was it.
It was it.
Golly. But that's a long time to bow hunt. But are you successful in January? Are you more successful in the early bow season? Over your career, with all the deer hanging behind you, when has been your magic time?
I'm going to say, well, I love September early season because you can pattern them and you can figure out what they're at. But I love the rut because you get different deer showing up. But I'm going to say the rut is a prime time to kill a deer if you ain't got one on camera or nothing like that. But I'm going to say early September and late in the year is my favorite time because you can pattern them and you can get on, see what they're traveling, their route, and you can get on them.
I got you. All right, now this particular deer we're getting ready to get into. And folks, this is brought to you by Rocky Boots, by the way, because if you need any type of boot, warm weather, cold weather, I'm going to chase rattlesnakes tomorrow, and I got my rattlesnake boots getting ready to be on. But if you need anything in footwear, y'all check them out, Rocky Boots. All right, so let's start getting into, you just found this deer that's behind you back there, and you saw him on your cameras in August. So what's your strategy and when are you going to start hunting this deer?
It's kind of, I got a story of behind this deer 2 years previously.
That's what I wanted to know. How many years have you been watching him, and how old do you think he is?
Well, I'm going to say he's only 3 years old.
Wow.
Last year, I had him. Last year, he was running with the deer that I killed last year, and he went 185 as an 8-pointer. He was 170 inches as an 8-pointer. Well, this deer that I killed behind me this year was running with him last year. He was a 125-inch 8-pointer last year, and I got to noticing he wasn't dropping his velvet. So I'm gonna say it was mid-October. I was still getting him on camera in full velvet, and my son was wanting to go kill him. So, something happened. He was playing football sports. He didn't have time to go out there hunting. Well, the deer made it, survive their season as a 125-inch 8-pointer. Well, last year, so I usually don't pull my cameras, but last year I pulled my cameras late January, and he was still in full velvet. Well, I'm assuming he dropped his horns, but I threw out the cameras again. I'm gonna say they was only out of the woods for maybe a month and a half to 2 months, and I went out there and put them back before turkey season come in. And I just threw some lucky buck out, and I started getting pictures of the deer, and I'm like, man, that's a funky looking deer right there. What deer is that? And I got to noticing it looked like a young deer. I'm like, what's the odds of that being the same deer last year? Because he had to drop his horns. I mean, there's no if and buts. He had to drop them because he was a perfect 8-pointer last year, and he went from a perfect 8-pointer to this back here. I mean, it's just stuff everywhere. There's no frame on him at all, really.
Golly.
So after I killed him, he had just one little bitty small testicle, just enough to drop his horns. And I'm assuming when he dropped his horns, I'm assuming he got hurt when he was at it. I'm gonna say he got hurt when he was last year is probably when he got hurt, because when he dropped his horns last year, he went crazy this year.
That's amazing. So this deer behind you that you got was an 8-point the year before?
Yeah, he was an 8-pointer. It was a mainframe 8-pointer, 125-inch 8-pointer. I got trail pictures of him and everything.
Something happened.
I mean, I don't see how a deer can go hunt from 125 inches to a 279 and just funky, don't even look the same. But it's 100% the same deer.
Really? Wow. All right, so you've got pictures of him in August, correct?
Yep.
When do you first start hunting this deer, and what's your strategy behind, and what tree stand? Are you hunting elevated platforms? You doing ground blinds? What are you doing?
It's getting close to season, and I'm looking at the weather. I'm like, man, we got a good front pushing in. I'm like, and I've hunted the farm enough to know if you get a north wind, you better be in there. Mm-hmm. So first bow season, we get a north wind. I'm like, man, this is going to be good. And I don't never hunt the mornings early bow season, not like that. Well, I use a hang-on, one of the big platform hang-ons in the tree. And I had it, it's actually been in the tree for probably 2 years. And I just go in there, check the straps, make sure they're good and everything. Mm-hmm. But everything was already set up. I didn't have to go in there, put no scent or nothing. I just sneak in there. Well, it was opening that bow season that afternoon. We had a north wind come in. So I snuck in there, got in there quietly, and it was this painter picture perfect, man. You couldn't ask for no better situation.
Now, it's an afternoon setup. Are you on the food plot right there inside the woods, or are you right on the edge?
I'm at the edge of the bean field and edge of the woods.
Okay. And this is where you had some pictures of him coming in to feed then?
This is where I was getting the 90% of the pictures of him. I was getting pictures all around the field, but this is where he was pretty much locked in, and this was his home area where he was wanting to come in the most.
And you had to have a north wind.
And I had to have a north wind hunt. Any other wind, it was terrible. So we had a cold front pushing in Kentucky the first week in the bow season, and man, I knew it was going to be some giants harvested, but I didn't ever think it was going to be one that big.
So, golly, so you're in the first afternoon, got the wind perfect. It's because a lot of times you have to wait 2 or 3 weeks to get that perfect wind, but you got it on opening afternoon, right?
Yep, opening afternoon, we had it. It was money.
All right, so walk me through what time you got in there until he shows up.
I'm going to say I got in there about 3:30, and this time, 3:30, so that was probably 2 hours before you're going to see anything. So I'm sitting in the deer stand, got in there I'm going to say around 3:30. I was sitting in the deer stand, I'm sitting here, and I was self-filming the hunt and everything. I said I was going to try it self-filming. Well, I got it when I was up the tree. I was sitting there, and I'm like, because last year I hunted really hard. And it was kind of a hard situation last year because I was having a baby, and I was putting a lot of time in the woods where I probably shouldn't have been. And I was sitting up in the deer stand. And I said, Lord, I said, please help me out this year where I ain't got to hunt all year and struggle like I did last year. And it wasn't. I'm gonna say, 15 minutes later, I seen 3 little raccoons coming through the woods and caught my eye, and I watched them walk through the woods. Well, it was like 15, 20 minutes later, I look up and I see this deer coming, and I'm like, what's the odds of it being a deer? And I got to looking at it, and I'm like, oh my God, that's him. That's him. Which he looked like a giant, but you couldn't see what he really had on his head. Mm-hmm. I didn't really know how giant. I knew he was big, but I didn't know how big he was until I actually got it to him after I shot him.
Really? But you knew it was him, though, when he was coming.
I knew it 100% was him because he was the only deer on the farm that looked like that. And he was coming in. I was self-filming it. And he got right there at the 25-yard mark, and he got something across the woods got his attention. And he turned and was walking across the woods and kind of checking it, kind of acting spooky a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I turned the camera best of my knowledge, thinking it was on him. And I pulled my bow back. I shoot a Matthews, and I pull it back. And I stop him, and I shoot, and I smoke him, and I knew where I hit him at. And And that's when I realized I didn't have the whole footage of shooting him on camera. But you could hear me shooting him in the camera and everything.
Yeah. Well, that's part of doing TV and stuff. So, I mean, I always have somebody up there that says, don't shoot. You didn't have anybody to tell you that. So it is what it is.
I kind of had to make the decision quick and hurry, which after I shot him, I knew I hit him perfect. I knew it was a double lung shot because I've killed enough deer to know. I'm like, man, I know this deer is done.
Yeah.
I get down, I call everybody, I tell him, everybody's like, oh, no, you didn't. I'm like, dude, I just shot this giant. And we give him 2 or 3 hours, and we meet up with a bunch of people. And my little nephew, he come with us looking for the deer. And I'm not seeing much blood, which I shoot a thunderhead. I'm sure you know what a thunderhead is. I shoot a 100-grain thunderhead, and it wasn't leaving a whole lot of blood. And I'm like, because it usually leaves a pretty good blood trail. And we wouldn't find no blood or nothing. And it was probably like 10 minutes later, my little nephew was like 7 years old. He's like, here he is. I thought he was just joking. And this deer died between 2 rocks in this middle of this waterway, and you couldn't even see him.
Really?
Like 45 to 50 yards where I shot him at. And when he dropped down in a holler, he died in this rockway. You couldn't see him. And I mean, I guess he just didn't have time to bleed. He was running so hard to get out of there. And when I went up to him, I'm like, oh my goodness, what a deer.
So this one grew on you. You know, a lot of times deer will shrink on you when you walk up on you. This deer grew on you.
He just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger as I got to him. I'm like, man, look at all the points on this thing. Like, it's just unbelievable.
Well, looking at him behind you, how many total points are on him, Kev?
45 scoreable points.
Holy smokes. And he's all velvet too, huh?
All velvet. I was told by Hunter, if I would have let him grow another 2 weeks, he would have pushed 300 inches.
Golly.
His horns were so soft when I killed him that you could actually take them and move them. It took them 5 or 6 weeks to have him in a freeze dryer to get him dried.
My heavens. 42 scoreable points. And on the Buckmaster scoring system, he was 279. Is that what he was?
279 and 6/8.
Wow. That is something else. And you can look at his neck right there. I mean, that's early season. You know what I'm saying? So he doesn't have the big neck like that deer behind you, straight behind you has. Isn't that something? Well, that's cool.
I mean, his mass is like the taxidermist. He had to actually get another taxidermist that had a little bit more experience to help him do it because he said it was the most, even the guy that done it, he said it was the most hardest deer he's ever mounted because his basis is like, I don't know, one of them is probably bigger than almost the size of a 2-liter bottle. I don't know exactly, it's humongous.
Yeah. Well, he's got a lot of stuff on him, and that's what he scored. That's what God gave him. So he's one unique buck, that's for sure. So
100%.
And if you don't ever shoot another one that big, you've got your World Series ring. It looks like a bunch of them hanging right there, but that is a very non-typical looking deer, and just the story behind it. To know that deer was an 8-point the year before and then goes to 270, what'd you say, 76, 79?
79.
79 inches. Wow. Unreal.
It's kind of a funny situation. Last year I told my wife, I was like, because I killed a 185 last year, and I'm like, I'm not going to mount no deer this year. And then I said, it's going to have to be over the 200 if I put another one on the wall. I said, I'm going to chill out on them, mounting them.
Yeah.
And then this year I killed this, and she's like, I'm like, well, I can't help it.
No, man. When they get to that level, you got to mount them. That's just where you can look at them every night. I mean, that's something else. Well, is there anything else you can share with the audience on any other tips that you've, kind of mastered right there? Because you've done a great job of shooting some really good deer.
All thing I can tell people is give them the right amount of mineral. And like me personally, I'm a Lucky Buck fan. It's worked for me. I've had really like lots of success for it. I'm not changing. When I got something that's working, I ain't changing.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
And give them the mineral, but the number one key is let them grow and let them live. They're not going to produce big deer at a young age. They got to at least hit that 4 to 5 year old mark for them to start producing big deer. Now this deer back here, I don't think he was 4 years old. I think he was 3.5. He might have been 4. He wasn't a really old deer. He just had something that happened to him.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, look, my friend, congratulations. I appreciate you taking time to be on our podcast. And
Thank you.
folks, that's another big one down right there, Kentucky. Doesn't get any better than that. Appreciate y'all watching the video. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Tell all your buddies Buckmasters is on social media. We'll see y'all next time right here on the Buckmasters Big Buck Blueprint. All right, Kev. Thank you, buddy.
All right. Thank you, buddy.